Hello, Teach Better family. My name is Katie Miglin, and I am thrilled to be here today to feature another one of our awesome speakers for the Teach Better conference that's happening in October. Today, I will be talking with Mike Szczepanik. Did I say it right? Awesome. To talk about his session and kind of what is getting him excited about the conference, which is not that far away. We are in the final countdown, I feel like. So stay with us, and we'll be back in just about 30 seconds.
So right now, I want to know if you're ready to teach better.
That's the whole mission of this weekend.
Just being here ready to learn and grow and come together like this is awesome.
What are those small changes that can make you better tomorrow than you were today?
All the amazing speakers we have here, wow.
So we have a ton of people here who are published authors, who are writing about education.
Let's get out there and teach better.
All right. Well, like I said, my name is Katie Miglin, and I get to talk shop with Mike today, who is going to be one of our speakers at the Teach Better conference that's happening in October. If you have not had a chance to check out all the information, you can head to teachbetterconference.com, where you can find all the information, including how to register. But Mike, welcome. I'm so excited that you're with us today. Can you tell us, if people haven't had a chance to connect with you, kind of what do you do? Where are you located? Kind of tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here too, Katie. Name's Mike Szczepanik, and I was telling Katie, the easy way to remember how to say it is when my wife had to learn how to spell it, she panicked. So it's close to that, I'm in the Rochester, New York area. Okay. Outside of Rochester, New York is a small town, Northwest, Hilton, New York. Okay. And so I've been teaching there for now. This is my year 26 and a half, because I came in kind of halfway through a year. Okay. I teach biology. Lately, it's been mostly AP bio, but I also do, I'm in the 712 science program coordinator for our district. So that's like a half term of my day, and the other half is teaching. So this is my third year going into that. So
does that mean that your day-to-day, like you literally teach half the day and then the other half is dedicated to that work?
That's yep, exactly. Yep.
Okay.
So I teach in the morning. So I'm not supposed to teach past fifth period, because then after that is dedicated toward being a program coordinator. So and it's kind of like a liaison kind of a thing. But it's directly related to curriculum and assessment, but also a good way for the science teachers to communicate to administration and administration to communicate with the teachers. I kind of am the person that connects everybody there. Mm-hmm. Look for ways to move us forward in certain things. Like for science, we have this NGSS coming up very soon. And so how do we get ready for those kind of things? Okay. So lots of hats.
I was going to say, I feel like you're kind of a jack of all trades. Well, we had some fun people chatting and dropping some comments in the chat. Dave is over here very jealous that he's not here with us today, but in 7 weeks, we do get to hang out with him. And Dave, it is, I know, I feel like when you say it like that, 7 weeks, it's like, oh, that's really close. It feels like it's been months. That's the countdown has been, we've got 4 months or whatever, but now we're down to weeks. So yeah. Oh my goodness. So we've got Brianna, we've got Nikki, we've got Ray, of course, checking in. So Mike, when we are kind of thinking about the conference, I know we've got tons of people registered. We've got lots of awesome speakers kind of coming out, but what are your kind of thoughts on your session? What are you hoping that people get out of it once they attend and kind of listen?
Yeah, I guess, mine's all about going gradeless. And I'm in a school that, we have to give grades, a 100-point grade scale. Okay. I got hooked up with a couple of people via Twitter at first, that were kind of came up with this idea that I shouldn't say came up with this idea, presented the idea to me. And, I just kind of ran with it. And so, the goal of mine is to just, make people think about how is their grading, and I would say, the big driving point that I would like to get home is like, what does our current grading say about students learning? Is it directed toward what they actually learn, or is it directed toward, the point grab kind of a thing? So, we all know all the things that go with, grabbing points from extra credit to, minus, losing points for lateness and, all those things that, do they belong in a grade or not? And, of course, there's definitely two sides of this. There are, definitely people that use it as a motivation tool. And, I totally understand that too, but at the same time, I think there's better ways that we can motivate our students than through penalizing with a grade or, artificially inflating it with other means, so.
Well, I think you bring up some really good points that sometimes the motive behind giving certain types of grades is really just supposed to provide that motivation, right? It's teachers feel like maybe students will be frustrated by their grade and they'll do something about it, or maybe they'll be excited by the extra points, so they'll do something more. But I think your point is that are those points on either end, whether they're being taken away or given, are they really sending the message that we are intending, and does it have the ultimate goal that we want? And so I think yours is going to be a hot topic for sure. I think it'll provide just kind of a different perspective. So, when people walk out, if nothing else, you've given them something to chew on, right? You've given them something to think about. But I think it's, Dave's saying you've got an amazing insight on this. And I think with your role in kind of where you're half in teaching and then half, providing that support for science teachers, I think you've got a really good position to kind of advocate for this, because you're able to do it just on a little bit higher level versus just the students in your classroom that you can control, and maybe just, the trickling effect of the people around you. So how does this kind of impact your day-to-day, this mindset? Because like you said, those students, you have to have grades. You have to have 100-point scale grades. So how do you kind of tackle like both ends of this?
Yeah. So every year it's like, have to start over, that's with any teaching, right? To get the kids used to the different systems that we might have in play, or how we approach different assessments and grading. And so, the first quarter, there's always, for my kids, there's always this like nervous, like, how is this going to look? I'm not used to this, I have mostly, AP students. They're used to this system because they're good at this system. It's worked well for them. And so it's a big mindset change, for them, because they have to it's basically a standards-based grading approach, but there's a lot of flexibility in it. And the approach is built on each quarter. They have to do more than they had to do the previous quarter. So what they may have mastered the first quarter might not be good enough for the second quarter, might not yield the same results. So, but again, there's some flexibility in what they're going to emphasize. So I could never say David's last name, but he wrote this Going Gradeless book. And, we had a couple of Teach Better Ambassador, PDs with him, and like he brought in this whole idea of like how to show growth, and it was huge. And like that was the biggest change I've had this year. I should say, like, with this, we all go through changes in how we do things, but I would say I'm like, how many different versions have I had with this? It just feels like it's been a ton. The first, and I'm the only one that does it at my school, as far as I know. And I've talked to other teachers about this, not necessarily going full in, going gradeless, because, when you talk to, grading is a very personal experience for teachers. It's almost like it can cause people to be defensive. It can cause people to dig their heels in. And I get that, because it feels like when our system is kind of like attacked or questioned, it feels like we are being questioned, I'm not good enough, or you're suggesting that. So, I get that. So it's very, slow approach when I talk to other teachers. I try not to go, well, you should do this, you should do that, because that's a perfect recipe for the heck. I'm not doing that,
Right.
Don't tell me
Right.
what to do.
Yeah.
So, it's like you just kind of maybe suggest, well, how does that work with this? Does this show this kind of learning? But David really got me into how do I show growth and make them, because if a student masters it at the first quarter and understands how to work the system, then really do they have to show any improvement they might not. David and I had a couple of just, one-on-one Zooms, and, we worked through a couple of ideas, and basically the addition this year is last year, I should say, these learning progressions.
Okay.
So, and it's fun too, because I only show them the levels that they can get to at that quarter. So, the next quarter I add a level. And so it's good that way too, because I can kind of sense where they are at the end of that quarter and go, well, is this going to be too big of a jump? Or is it going to be, is this good? Or do I need to do more? I had planned on another level for the fourth quarter, but pretty much the fourth quarter is just getting ready for the AP exam. So I went, you know what, we're not going to add a level, and you're already above what the AP expects anyway. So, it's fun. It's a learning process. Every year is a new version. So, I don't know if I answered your question or not.
Even
I'm
if
just
you didn't,
rambling here a little bit.
No, I'm, I think Andrea said it perfectly. Just listening to you kind of go on about your grading and the conversations you have with students. I think you kind of touched on some big things, and one of them being grading is personal, because in some ways it's that door into your classroom that, admin and parents and other students can see. It's not just a communication tool. It's also kind of a reflective of what's going on in your classroom, for right or wrong. And
Absolutely.
so I think you brought a really good point that sometimes teachers take it pretty personal, and it's a hard conversation to have, of maybe our grading practices aren't perfect and maybe we should look at something different. And I love the Going Gradeless book. I kind of was watching from afar as some of you ambassadors were going through that, which was cool. We got the last name kind of dropped in a few times. So David Frangiosa, maybe?
Yeah, that's the OI or the IO, I should say, always kind of trips me up. So,
well, I apologize, David, if I completely butchered it, but
yeah,
at least we have the name there. So, but Mike, I think that it's really interesting to hear your perspective, because you teach AP, you teach honors classes, and you teach, these higher level students. And sometimes, like you said, those are like the harder ones to get through, because like you said, they're at that point where they had it figured out. They've got the game of school figured out. And you're kind of telling them to intentionally pause and really evaluate their learning and make sure that they're really grasping it, which is such a big part of education, right? I mean, it's not just jumping through the hoops. It's not just getting the grades. I mean, I was totally a kid. I could jump through any hoop you gave, but I couldn't necessarily tell you much that I learned. I knew how to get it done. And so I think it's really cool that you are doing this with some of the brightest students in your school. I would assume science is a challenge for me, so I would assume that those students are pretty high level. And I think it's so cool. And it's cool that you can like safely say, yeah, by fourth quarter, they're like surpassing where they needed to be. So it shows that it's working. You are getting lots of love in the comments, which tells me that your session is going to for sure be a hit. So when you're kind of rolling this out, because, it's beginning of the school year right now, so I'm sure you're slowly introducing this. At what point do you feel like in the year are your students like, they've got it, they're okay with it, you don't get as much pushback? Kind of what point are you like, okay, we're rolling?
Yeah. Well, I actually haven't started.
Oh, you haven't?
Yeah. New York State, we actually, my official first day is the day after Labor Day. And then students, it's the Wednesday. So, so I'm still kind of tweaking at this point for sure. Of course, though, I go to the end of June. So I always hear like
That's
people
right.
going, "Oh my gosh, we're all done. It's the end of May," and I'm like, "So I got a month to go."
Right,
So,
right, that's
but
true.
but to answer your question, I would say once they have gone through a grade conference, so that's at the end of the quarter. So how do we
Okay.
translate what they've done into a 100-point scale?
Okay.
And so I've got some boundaries, some upper and lower boundaries for what they've done and what that means, and on top of that, some suggested, like, I would say soft skills kind of things that
Okay.
could influence it too. I call it habits of scholarship. I'm thinking about changing that, but that's part of the tweaking still I'm doing. But it's the extra things, right?
Yeah.
But if nothing more, that's just going to kind of like am I in the upper part of this scale or the lower part? But it gives the students the ownership to be able to like, what is my grade?
Mhm.
So
Well, and I think that you brought up a good point as far as like kind of giving them that feedback, because that's such an important piece of all of it, is that you have the conferences, you talk to them, but it takes some of the pressure off that it's at the end of the quarter versus every time there's some sort of an assessment or every time there's some sort of project. Sometimes I feel like students like work really hard those final days right before an assessment, and then they don't see the long term. So I really appreciate that you wait until the quarter and then kind of talk it out. You kind of reflect on what did this quarter do for your learning and where are you at and what do we need to do for the next quarter, because
right.
it really makes them focus on their learning and less about what's going in the grade book. So I think that's really interesting.
And what's fun is it's the kid's grade. For longest time, like I felt like I had to be the defender of the grade,
Yep.
but the reality is, am I going to remember who got what grade? Probably not, but the kids will. The kids will. I mean,
Yes.
I could tell you a story about a time I was in college and I thought I took this class, a really difficult class, and I buried my head into this course because I heard it was hard and it was a challenge for me. And like I spent twice the amount of time outside of class that I did inside of class getting ready for this. And professor gave me an A-, and I wanted an A. Like it was just this thing because he used this standard deviation thing. And I was 0.97 above the standard deviation, but it had to be 1.0 and he wouldn't budge. Yes. I, to this day, remember that teacher, and he did some presentations that everyone said, "Oh, they're great." But I'm like, I'm not going. I can't, I don't like this guy.
Yeah.
He wouldn't, but that's what I remember, but I'm sure he doesn't remember, so it's their grade. So as long as they're, within a ballpark, of what I think they are, I'm okay with it. And a lot of times I have to suggest they bump it up a little bit, it's only once in a while you will get a kid that believes they have a higher grade, but a lot of times you just didn't understand, like they didn't know what they didn't know, kind of a thing.
Right.
And so like those are the most difficult ones, because I never want to tell a kid, well, no, maybe not. Let's look at this again. You gotta, kid gloves, right? You got to approach it very delicately, but I just kind of like get out of the way and they choose their grade. And then we get to talk, then we get to real talk. Like, okay, so what worked really well this quarter? What did you do different this quarter than you did the last quarter? Great. That looks awesome. Now, what are you going to do next? Like you've done all this, you've done an amazing job. Can we take it another step? And that's like, those personal conversations are great. I mean, we're having those all the time, we're walking around class and stuff, but like, that's like, truly, it's just the two of us talking. And so it's a great time.
And there's literally nothing better than a conference where you're only focused on the student and what they have been able to do. I feel like so often in education, our conversations with students are either very brief, it's, hey, how was soccer last night? Or, hey, how's the new baby brother, whatever. But I feel like a lot of energy goes towards maybe negative behaviors or redirections or, reteaching. And it's got this like kind of negative vibe, for lack of a better description. but you being able to have like just a one-on-one conversation and just be like in that moment with the student, but to let them reflect on their learning is so powerful. And as you're sitting here talking, I remember so often I did conferences as well, not nearly as awesome as yours, but I would have students turn things in and they, I would just quickly look at it and I'm like, oh, you're at this, learning level. And I'd get the, really? And so I would just stop. I'm like, okay, well, what do you think? And, typically I taught middle school. So their first reaction was like, well, I know it. And I said, okay, well, can you explain this? Well, no. Okay, well, can you walk me through this? Like, walk me through it. Maybe I misunderstood your answer. And then it was those moments where they're like, oh, I guess I don't really know this. I'm like, yeah, I know. That's okay. Let's like try again. Let's keep learning. And so you having those moments like really is a kind of a memorable moment for students, because then it's on them, right? They're taking the ownership. Because I was with you, I had many professors and teachers throughout my years where I worked my tail off and I really wanted that grade and I worked so hard and it was like out of my hands and I felt so helpless on something that was so important to me. And so you giving the students the reins and saying, okay, then let's figure this out, I think is so powerful. And those students are going to walk away better people because of those conversations you've had. So
well, that's the hope, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. That is kind of why we went into teaching, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Mike, what if you had to pick one thing maybe a couple of things, but one thing you are most excited about for Teach Better Conference in October, if you had to maybe just narrow it down to one, what would you pick?
To see through the screen and into real people, right? Isn't that what it really is?
Yes.
I know so many of you guys just never met in person. There's only a couple people I've met in person. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking forward to those, it's the end of the day. It's the end of the, just kind of sitting around, maybe, grabbing a bite to eat and just because they're organic, those conversations. Yes. They start out as just how are things going up there? And then they blossom into something else. And especially after a day of a lot of learning where your head feels like it might, yeah, exactly. It's going to explode. Right. And you just have that time to process it with people that are, like-minded people, that want to always, do better and improve. And, it's just, I love conferences just for that reason. I've gone to other conferences too, it's so much fun. It's to meet those people. So
mm-hmm. I 100% agree. And, you touched on something that I want to just make sure we highlight is our conference does look a little different than others because we have those networking events at night. So that when your head is getting ready to explode and you just want a casual setting, we have those built into the schedule. As I said before, all the information you can find at teachbetterconference.com, everything from where are those networking events located, what restaurants we are heading to, as well as all of the sessions, including yours, and our sponsors are out there, the authors that will be featured in our bookstore. There's just so much information, as well as how to register in case you have not had a chance to check it out. So I totally agree. I can't wait to just have those little moments throughout the conference that are not through a screen. Our team had a chance to meet in person and we felt like that was just kind of the tip of the iceberg as to, getting to see each other at the conference. So
keeps getting dark over here. Sorry about that.
Oh, that's okay. I thought maybe you were just, you were fading me out. You're saying, I'm done, Katie.
Fade to black.
That's okay. Well, Mike, it has been such a joy to be able to connect with you. I know we've probably connected a few times just in, virtual settings, but it's great to talk shop and listen to all the amazing things you're doing with students and grading. And I know I am personally very excited to listen to kind of more, and you'll be at a different point in the year. You'll be about done with quarter 1 at that point when you come to the conference, right?
Not quite. No,
not quite. Okay. About halfway, maybe?
About halfway. Yeah.
Okay. Yep. Perfect. Yep. So we'll see how kind of the progress with this new group of students is going. And we'll be kind of be able to get a different perspective at that point. Now you're brainstorming. At that point, you'll be kind of living it. So it'll be kind of fun to kind of see that. So Mike,
don't you feel, Katie, that at the conference, I was just looking over the schedule and I'm like, I don't know if you remember this movie or not. It's called Multiplicity with Michael Keaton.
Yep.
You know, I feel like I'm looking over the schedule. I was just looking at it today. I'm like, well, I got to go do that one. I got to do that one and wait there at the same time. And then some of them are overlapping. I'm like, I just got to make duplicates of myself and just
There you go.
get it all in. Right.
Well,
So-
Dave Schmitto and I keep laughing, you know, every time that we've introduced somebody, we are like, okay, we're going to be that person that's like running in and out of every session, like 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, just so you can catch little snippets, because there are so many good sessions. And unfortunately, there's only so many hours in the day.
Right.
So, well, Mike, thank you so much for joining us today and taking a little bit of time out of your summer, since you're still living summer life, which is awesome. And yeah, we look forward to seeing you in October. Again, all information can be found at teachbetterconference.com. We look forward to kind of seeing you and hearing voices in person. Anything else, Mike? Anything you want to share?
No, I'm just 7 weeks. It's coming up. I can't wait.
I know. Yep. Let the countdown continue.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Have a good day. Thanks, everybody.